Welcome back to the Big Red Hunters podcast. We want to start out by saying thank you to our sponsors. Big Frig Coolers. They offer coolers, cattle coolers that hold medication and vaccinations, tumblers, growlers, and dry boxes. The coolest thing about Big Frig is you can customize it all with whatever you want. Check them out at bigfrig.com, and if you have any questions, email at info@bigfrig.
Our next one is Glory Visuals. They specialize in wedding and commercial films, so they do videography, and it's incredible. Y'all should go check them out on social media. You also can check them out on gloryvisuals.com.
Next up, Other Guys Outfitters. They specialize in dry field and Canada goose hunts. They run from November through February, and they've done an awesome video of dive bomb industry, so you check it out. If you want to book a hunt, call Krager at 308-637-7777 or check the Other Guys Outfitters on Facebook and Instagram.
Next up is Faithful Images.
Ooh.
This is our personal photography business. You can check us out on Instagram or Facebook at Faithful Images Nebraska or our website, faithfulimages.org.
Next up, Redbeard's Custom Calls. He runs the Timber Rattler or the Cut Down Duck Call and Crossing Guard Goose Call. Awesome calls, awesome quality. This guy's he knows what he's doing. So give Andrew a call at 712-898-6989 and let him know we sent you because he'll give you 10% off.
Yeah, buddy. All right, next one is Chaco Peru, owned by Angelo. He specializes in big game and waterfowl hunts in the U.S., Mexico, South America, Europe, and Australia. So you can check him out at chacoperu.com or contact him at 469-999-4043.
Last one up, and a new sponsor to the podcast, Whitetail Taxidermy in Louisville, Nebraska. Owned by Jody Schultz. You might know him as Pappy from our YouTube. Awesome guy, and he's an award-winning taxidermist. So give him a call at 402-630-0031.
With that being said, those are our BRH podcast sponsors. We appreciate each and every one of them, and let's jump into the episode.
Three, two, one. Thanks for checking out the Big Red Hunters podcast. Today we're going to be talking about, is pet insurance worth it for your hunting dog?
Good topic.
I think this is a big question for pretty much anybody that has a dog in general or pet in general, but I think it's really a big question for those that go hunting a lot with their dog.
Right.
You think of waterfowl hunters, a dog is really a main part, or a lot of people see him as essential to waterfowl hunting, and then you got upland game, shed dogs. I mean, truthfully, they're an integral part to a lot of the hunting community, so it's really in a lot of ways, is a big asset. So before we kind of jump into this question, I think it's necessary to tell you where our dog came from, and that kind of plays in later in the podcast. So basically, we came to the point where I was waterfowl hunting enough that I felt like it was important to get Nala.
Right.
It was kind of interesting because we had just gotten to the house. We had just already got a dog, Zeus.
My buddy.
He's not a hunting dog, but he's a good dog.
He's cute. He's a mini golden doodle. If you haven't seen him on my personal Instagram, you should check him out. Or they have their own Instagram, Diddle Dogs. So that's pretty cool.
So we have Zeus. He was just really energetic as a puppy, which most puppies are. But he just seemed like he was bored a lot because we were so busy. And so we're like, well, let's get him a pal so they can run around and they can actually chill out because they're too busy fighting, which they're trying to fight under the table over bone right now. But that's
so
just
if you hear them, sorry.
But at that point, we're like, well, let's get a black lab, because I had always envisioned it for our family. It was always a dream for me to have my own dog, train my own dog, or at least have my own trained dog. And that's when it kind of unraveled in a good way. I was on Facebook just kind of traveling around, and it just popped up. I had actually called several of the local kennels to kind of get an idea if they had anything coming up, and nobody had anything. And I was getting pretty disappointed through the whole thing trying to find one. And that's when the owner of Nala's mom actually had posted on Facebook forum and said, hey, I got these black lab puppies, awesome pedigree, get a hold of me if you're interested. And being where we were kind of like, maybe we're thinking about getting one. Send it to me. So I look, and her background,
phenomenal.
Like both sides of the pedigree. There's field trial champs, awesome bloodline.
Right.
Another part too is if you're kind of looking for a hunting dog, when you're checking out the pedigree, is checking out how their health is, like their hips and their knees, and seeing where the vet had checked them out. And especially if they're running field trials, they have to get checked out before. So check it out, because, if you got a history of either hip problems or knee problems, this is a big question, is insurance, because that may have a big effect on your decision making too. So Just an idea. So kind of jumping in, pet insurance. It's basically a yes or no question.
Right.
And I think to start off the podcast, we're going to say no. We don't want pet insurance, and why that might be. Obviously, it's an investment. It takes out of your financial, month to month. So the way it works is you've got a deductible that you set. Now with our insurance, it was $250, $500, I think $750 and $1,000. And depending on where your deductible was, that's where your premium was. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you. And Shay knows this and gives me crap about it all the time. I did not want pet insurance. I didn't want it
at all.
I felt, I had a hunting dog growing up. We never really had that many issues.
Right.
She did later in her life, but didn't really have a lot of issues because I just didn't feel like the risk was really there. And that's what you have to do with insurance, is decide if the risk is, big enough in order to, invest in that insurance. And so you get a premium. I think ours is $1,000 deductible. And I think it's like $30 a month for our premium.
Right.
And the other part is you got to pay attention, just like every other insurance, is your copay. So for Nala, she got hurt, it'd be $1,000 out of her pocket.
Right.
Say if it was a $2,000 bill, we're still going to have to pay 10%. And then, you have your monthly premium. But it boils down to, do you think that the risk is big enough? And two, do you value your asset or your family member enough to decide on, paying for that? And for me, just going to be honest, I said no. But I remember us being on the phone with the pet insurance guy, because we did.
Oh, we were at, what lake was that?
I can't. It was a close one. But we were in this conversation, and
he was mean, guys. He was angry. Guys get angry about money. Girls just like, wow, stay away from that topic.
We had did a free trial for a week because every majority of your insurances, you have to go to the vet, you have to get them checked out to make sure they don't have any issues up front. And then they say, hey, okay, you can go ahead. They give us a free trial for like, I don't know, a week or a month or something. And they called us and basically said, your coverage is going to be over. Are you going to want to start paying now or no? And yeah, you're right. We did definitely get in an argument about that whole thing. And it was a rough deal, but finally at the end I said, okay, we'll put $1,000 deductible on both our dogs, minimum monthly premium,
right,
and we'll go from there.
Right.
So I think between the both of them, I think they're like $50.
It's around 56.
Okay.
56.
So now we're going to give you kind of our journey here with pet insurance. Okay, we said yes, deductible's $1,000, premium's like $30, and
let me jump in here really quick.
Okay.
Before we actually used our dog insurance, which we're going to tell you in a minute, a story. But after getting it, Hunter goes, I bet you we will never have to use this. And I go, I bet we will. We have a black lab and a golden doodle. So I get to tell you, I told you so if we use it. And he was like, bring it. We're not going to. This is a waste of money. Totally not worth it. And this is why I proved him wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to say on this podcast. Never mind.
Oh, no, you gotta say it.
No, but for real, I was totally wrong about this. So
girls,
we're gonna
I don't
jump
hear
into
that
the
often.
story. We actually struggled with. I wanted to send her a trainer. She didn't, because obviously she was attached. Looking back, she was right about that situation too. But I decided to train her on my own, and obviously a big part of that training with them growing up is to have them be a part of as many things as you can in the hunting scenario. She was probably 6 months, maybe.
Yeah, around there.
8 months. I took her out to the snow goose spread. We were setting it up, and boom, boom, boom. Getting the blind up, everything. She's running around, having a great time. Awesome, puppy's enjoying it. Cool. I'm putting in these Texas rags that have wooden stakes to them, so I'm trying to pound them in the ground because the ground was still sort of frozen, and so I was having a lot of issues. And she kept running around doing her thing, and she kept eating corn stalks. And I'm thinking, she's chewing on corn stalks, whatever. And I'd throw them every once in a while to keep her entertained. And she's eating corn stalks. I'm not paying attention, trying to get things out. Obviously, with the snow goose spread, you have umpteen amount of decoys. You're trying to get them through quickly. So you're not paying attention to the puppy. Number one. First problem right there. Didn't pay attention to the puppy. Number two, next thing you know, I just hear this like blood curdling scream from Nala. I've never heard it ever since then, but it's scary out of your boots. Like
your worst
I
nightmare.
jumped, looked back, and all I can see is that this wooden stake was in her mouth and stuck. So the first thing I do, which was
stabbed the roof of her mouth.
Yeah. The first thing that I react to is I run over there, and I'm just trying to get it out of her mouth. I thought it was just in the back of her mouth. I didn't realize how far up it was. And I just pulled it out. And Nala she is very driven as a hunter, but when she gets hurt or anything, she just kind of balls up and gets really upset.
Right.
So I just picked her up and was holding her, and she's just shaking. And it was a terrifying event. So I took her back to Dane's truck because he had it on, and it was probably 30, 40 degrees. Put her in there and get her kind of warmed up, figure that she'd calm down. That way I can look in her mouth and figure out what the issue was. Right. Got her kind of warmed up, got her back in the tailgate, tried to open her mouth, and she wouldn't even let me open it up. Nothing. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And we decided, Nala and I decided to leave, go back. I took her to the emergency vet because she won't let me in here. Took her home, trying to give her a little bit of a treat. Nothing was going on. So I took her to the vet.
Not to mention, you called me, and I'm at work, and I'm freaking out because my baby girl is going to the emergency room. And so I'm trying to talk him through it because I work in healthcare. So I'm trying to apply my people skills to a dog, which does not work, by the way. And telling him what to do. And all I just remember is, oh my gosh, Nala is in some serious trouble.
Yeah, so I took her to the emergency vet. They sedated her so they can get in there. Went in there, figured out that the stake had went clear up, through her mouth up to her ocular cavity, and was up that far. So they sedated her, put some meds up there, gave her more meds, sent her home. She's if you're having some more issues, come back. But at this point, we should be okay.
Right.
And at that point, either I or Shay was with her all the time just to make sure she was good. And I remember buying cans and cans of wet food because she was going to have to eat wet food. Right. And yeah, that was expensive.
Well, not even that, but are we going to tell the even worse part of that story?
Hey, you're more than welcome.
Ugh. So that's not even the end of it. Basically, long story short, because we could talk about this forever, but we thought we were covered. They, debrided the whole wound, gave us antibiotics, soft foods, just keep an eye on her. Well, she was acting really weird the next few days. I mean, really weird. And her eye was getting more swollen and wasn't going down. And I was like, Hunter, it should be the opposite. We're giving her antibiotics. The inflammation should be going down. I know we're going to see some swelling, but this is just different. So we take her to the vet, and they're like, yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. I was like, all right, that's fine. Gave us some more stuff, went home. And then I was like, I just have this gut-wrenching feeling, if you're a mother.
Let me jump in here.
Oh, okay.
So for my job, I was at a training session clear out in Iowa. I had stayed there, It was going to be stay there one night, train all day, and then drive back. It's like 2 hours away. So I'm sitting here in a training session all day, and Shay's sending me photos. She's sending me texts, like really worried about Nala, taking her to the vet. I'm freaking out. Right. So I'm like trying to deal with this, trying to deal with my normal work stuff, and then dealing with it. I was just stressed out. So she went to the local vet a couple times.
I went back for a second time.
And the local vet, he's kind of back and forth. He kind of thinks it's this, but kind of thinks it's take her to the ER. So at this point, I'm trying to hightail it back home. We get home, and I remember I was laying on the floor with her.
Right, she just looked like a zombie. Like, it was just a different Nala. It was like she was under sedation, and we weren't even giving her sedation medication.
Yeah, and we're sitting there, and she was laying on her. So she was laying on her side, and her bad side, her bad eye, was on the floor. So I couldn't see it, but she seemed like she was peaceful. She seemed like she was doing okay, but obviously really tired. And we get home, and she gets up, and
her eye was just popping out of her head. And when I mean popping, like it was about to fall out of her head. Like, I'm not kidding. It was so inflamed that it was insane. It looked like she had Graves' disease, but she didn't.
Yeah. And if anybody was curious to see what that looks like, just DM us or email us.
We'll send you a photo. It's pretty gruesome, so we won't put it on social media, but we'll show you what it looked like. But
so at that point, we decided, okay, we're not going to do anything else. We're going to hightail it to the ER vet. The ER vet's in Omaha, like 45 minutes away. Hightail it there.
Right.
Go there, get in there. We're freaking out. Get her in there, and they're like, okay, we're going to have to take her for the night. And
we just looked at each other like, oh no.
Yeah.
This is serious.
So, okay, for a pet insurance situation right now, we're already having money at the ER vet. We've already got our own vet. We've already got...
It's accumulating.
We've already got medication, and now we're at the ER vet.
We're at the ICU.
We're at the ICU.
For a dog, guys. ICU for a dog.
So they take her. They think they're gonna do a surgery the next day, and then they call us, and they said we're gonna go in there. We're gonna clean all this out. They basically told us that if we hadn't take her in like 24 hours, the infection would have gotten her blood. She would have killed her.
Yep.
And so they went in there and did an invasive up in there, cleaned it all out, got all the infection out, and really like got down and dirty.
Right.
And cleaned it all out, and we got there, got Nala, got a bunch of medication, and it was a rough situation.
Worst scenario, honestly. It felt like our baby girl was not going to be around much longer. It was just the worst feeling of my life.
And so we went. Did all the medications. After a couple weeks, she just kept getting better and better, and it was an awesome feeling to have her take and make a full recovery. To this day, she still doesn't like to have us play with her mouth.
Not at all.
Every time you play with her mouth, she gets still like scared like she did when that whole thing happened, which I totally understand.
Right.
She went to 3 vets and dealt with all of that.
Poking and prodding.
It was horrible.
But the good news is, because we have pet insurance, right, babe?
Right. So let's run through this. So we've got the first ER vet, we got the other 2 vets, we got the medication, we got the ICU vet, and then the medications to finish it with. So we are like $6 or $7 grand into this whole thing.
Total $9 grand. Total
$9 grand. So we got $9 grand invest in this. Now, if you don't have insurance, guess what?
You're paying that all out of pocket, my friend.
And so not only was Shay right, but she was right.
Ooh, good thing this is on recording, girls, because I don't hear that often.
So we're $9 grand at this event. Now let's take this in a situation where, depending on where you are, like on your socioeconomic scale, $9,000 to anybody is a big bill.
It's insane, especially, for an animal. Our dogs are our kids, but like, that's still insane to think about. Like $9 grand. Am I really wanting to put that towards my dog?
And depending on where you're at and how young you are, you may not even have the assets to pay for that.
We just got married. We did not have a lot in our pockets at all.
And the other thing too is the ICU vet was wanting half of it up front.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have the half of it up front, they would just send you home.
Right. Like they wouldn't have even took care of them.
So you really were backed into a corner. Now, would you want to get pet insurance In our opinion, absolutely.
Right.
Just because
100%.
of the story, yes, I understand that it's an outlier story and not every dog experiences this.
Right.
But dogs do experience a lot of issues
Right.
just in general. So our main question is isn't pet insurance worth it? Yes. And that's why for our situation we will always have pet insurance because of Nala's event, but also other issues that we haven't even spoken about yet.
Not even that, but like how much would you say we actually ended up paying out of pocket because we had insurance?
I think we paid like $1,500.
Right, that's what I was gonna say, about $1,500.
So our deductible is $1,000 plus the 10% and the medications. So
Right.
I think it was like $1,500.
Right.
So you had to think
We saved a lot of money in that situation.
you've saved a lot of money.
That's a lot of decoys, my friends. A lot of decoys. And I know you all want decoys every season. So just think about that too.
So yes, we want pet insurance. It, for us, it's protecting our family member. You can see it as protecting an asset because a dog is a tool in the field to help you. So it is an asset too. They do pay for emergency issues. Now there other issues that we've had with Nala, and you'll find this with a lot of labs, is swallowing issues. I think it was like 3 or 4 months in, she swallowed a big bone and we had to go get it out.
Right.
So you got to think of all the issues that may come up swallowing. Got the bone stuck in her mouth. That happened a couple months ago. She got a bone stuck around her mouth.
Wrapped around her whole jaw. So those circle bones, never buy those because they will get caught on their jaw. It happened to us.
Eating something in general from the field. Maybe you're running around and she gets into something that makes her sick. Maybe she runs into stuff, hunting. There's so many things that could become an issue.
Barbed wire fences.
Yep, have that one too.
That sticks that she stepped on and opened the pad of her foot. I mean, our dog is very prone, I would say, to accidents, but still, these are daily occurrences that could happen to any hunting dog.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is a dangerous scenario every time we go out. And so there's a lot of danger, and you got to, think, is my asset or family worth protecting? And for us, it absolutely is. So the other part of this is you've got short-term emergency issues, but they also, with insurance, it covers long-term issues. And, what I mean by that is, so the few things that are huge about labs, and depending on what kind of dog you have, labs are definitely known for allergies. Mm-hmm. They're known for hip and knee problems and skin issues.
Right.
So when she was a puppy, we went, like we said, to the vet, got her checked out. They said there wasn't any issues. Anything that comes up that's a long-term issue, they'll cover.
Right.
So say she got a hip problem and she has to have multiple surgeries to fix that hip problem. You're going to pay the $1,000, and then you're going to have to pay the co-pays on the surgeries. But after that $1,000, you're going to pay.
And I kind of want to chime in, honestly, really quick before we keep going. Something that also the insurance we figured out is the sooner you get it, so the younger the puppy is, the more coverage you can actually have. So because Nala was 6 months old at the time, we got the best deal out of the option we chose, even though our deductible, we chose $1,000. It covered the most at that time. Now, if you have a dog that's middle age or even older, those pre-existing occurrences could already be happening, and depending on the insurance, they may or may not cover that issue. So I highly recommend, once you have a puppy, get insurance. Don't wait, because you will get the best for your dollar.
So let's kind of walk through, if we bought a new puppy today, what we would do. And we had made a decision to say, hey, we're going to get insurance, right?
Right.
We think it's worth it. Now, we're going to walk you through the steps that it really takes to get insurance and how you should do it. Number one, you buy a puppy today, I would really check out some of your local vets and decide on which vet you're going to go with.
Super important.
Really check out their reviews, but what it boils down to is you trust somebody with your family member.
And not only that, but once you pick a vet, so you'll have a primary vet, those vet offices actually sometimes have partnerships with insurances. So like ours has a partnership with Trupanion. And what that means is anytime an event occurs, our vet will actually submit all the paperwork. We don't even have to fill it out. And it's just a lot easier. Now, obviously, you can pick up other insurances that maybe your vet office doesn't partnership with, and they'll still cover, but you will have to manually, fill those out and then submit them. And so if you do have a primary vet already, ask them what insurances maybe they run with. And that process may be a lot easier in the future if you end up doing the one that they cover. So
now the process she's talking about, so say we talked about the emergency vet where you had to pay half of it up front. So in the event, I think it was somewhere like 5,000 or 6,000. So in that event, you would, if you have an insurance that your vet doesn't cover or has a partnership with, you're going to have to pay that up front. And then later on, your insurance is going to pay you back.
Right.
Now, if they're partnered with them, like that $3,000, we walked out of there not paying a dime from the ICU vet because the ICU vet was partnered with our insurance.
Right.
So you don't have to pay that up front, and then all at the end of it, we had to submit everything, and at the end, we had to pay some. So that's the big help because you don't have to pay it all up front and then get money back.
Right.
That's why we're saying we need to check with our local vet. So to kind of finish up, the one that we use is Trupanion. That's the one our vet was partnered with.
Right.
Looking back, you can, like I said, you can get, depending on your deductible and for your premium, we did the cheapest deductible because I was a cheapskate.
Right.
I didn't want to do it. That's why we had an argument. Looking back, next time we get a puppy, the way you can do insurances is you can actually scale back. So you can go from a deductible to $250 to $1,000 later on in their life.
Right.
And if we had a puppy again, we'd set it at $250, go with the high premium, and then after a year or two, when the dog's kind of calmed down and has a little more common sense about eating stuff, that's when we would scale back.
Because you can never go lower than what you set your price. So since we did the 1,000, we can't go back down to 250 or any lower number, and that's kind of the stinker. And the ha-ha moment that I point out to Hunter is we can never scale down, which kind of stinks since we have such an accident-prone puppy, but I'm still glad we have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to continue to carry that insurance, obviously, until the whole thing, because you never really know what can end up happening. Obviously, every time in the field, I take her in the field, there's a danger. And then, long-term issues because, labs love hip problems and knee problems, and that's just normal. But to finish off, there are some insurances. We are not in any way partnered for the podcast for Trupanion. That's just the one we use. So there's a lot of good ones out there.
We just did the research.
So like we said, we just checked the local vet. That's what we would recommend. Right. But if you're just got a vet that's not partnered or whatnot, there are some great ones out there. There's Trupanion, Progressive, Nationwide, Healthy Paws, Pumpkin, Geico, Pet First. So what I would just advise if you're in that scenario, I would check it out. Do research. Google.
Yeah. Check it out, see what they what they have to offer, or even ask your vet. I mean, I'm sure they're educated on their insurance. If they don't even have a partnership, they probably could give you some suggestions and some pamphlets to look over. So overall, just look at your info and kind of run from there and see what best option would be for your family. So absolutely. So that kind of wraps it up. That's kind of our podcast here. Is pet insurance worth it for your hunting dog? Absolutely. 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 If you're a young guy that has a wife and you just got married and you're probably a little short on cash, just still do it. Just learn from Hunter's mistake. Because Shay was right. So, I love you to death, sweetheart. I love you too. And I love our kids. And I'm so glad that they're here with us, because my biggest regret would be having to make that decision of not taking care of our pet because we don't have the money. Like, absolutely. I never want to be in that scenario, and I never will, because I'm going to have insurance, and we do have it. I don't think I ever told you this story, but after that snow goose thing, before this all went down, I'd taken pictures of her, and I was so excited because that was one of the first times she was out in the field. And I remember texting the guy that I had purchased Nala from and just saying, like, she's doing great. She's, having so much fun. And I had texted them before this happened. That's a 360. And then this all went down, like her going to the ICU vet. And I thought, to be real with you listeners, I thought she was going to die. I was really fearful. It was pretty serious. I mean, you're right. Like, the doctor looked at us and they're like, you made the absolute right decision to bring her here, because if you would have waited any longer, the minimum 24 hours, she wouldn't be here. She that the infection was spreading so fast in her eye. It was insane.
And to give you a little background about Nala, she is food driven. Absolutely. Like her day, like she will come to us half an hour before it's food time because we have set food times, and she just loves up on you, and you could just tell she just wants food.
Right.
And she wasn't eating.
Wouldn't even go next to the bowl. I mean,
she just acted depressed. She wasn't herself. And so when a dog starts acting like that, you're like, uh-oh.
Right.
So I remember texting. I remember like looking at that text conversation, like almost crying. So, well, guys, that kind of wraps up the end of the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have anything, any ideas for podcasts for us to kind of talk about, we would love to take on that idea. So shoot us a message or an email. We appreciate you guys listening to this podcast.
Heck yeah.
And we'll catch you on the next one, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, have a good day. Have a good one. Bye.